And I'm back. What's up, guys? So, this last week was quite eventful, and it was nice to get away from uh, being able to create the videos. I took my laptop with me, so I actually could have done the videos and in response to Super Tuesday and everything that kind of unfolded in the last week. But it was nice to I decided to rather just enjoy where I was. I went out of state for a little bit, and I had a great time. Also, as someone who is a strong supporter of Bernie Sanders, volunteer in the campaign, I'm still working with the campaign. It was nice to not be forced to react to every momentary change that kind of occurred this past week. It was a bit emotional, I'll be honest. I haven't gotten so emotionally invested in a presidential campaign like I kind of am right now with the Bernie Sanders campaign. And so, a week like we had last week, in which a lot of the indicators were, in Trump's words, not good, um, in a week where the indicators were not good, just not reacting via social media, creating like a million posts in response to every little thing, the Pete Buttigieg endorsement, the Amy Klobuchar endorsement, the Beto O'Rourke endorsement, the Mike Bloomberg endorsement, the Elizabeth Warren non-endorsement, all that stuff. It was kind of an overkill week. And so, just on a personal note, it was nice to not be so reactionary. Also, on a personal note, I don't like to talk too much about it just because spiritually, from what I've learned, when you are in a phase of Lenten fast, you're not supposed to, I guess, do it for show or anything. But I'm not on social media, and that is because of spiritual reasons. I decided for Great Lent this year to give up social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. And so getting these videos through was a bit difficult. I definitely use social media to reach my family and friends. Now I'm just texting them and hoping that they share, or trying to do whatever hashtag or clickbait kind of title I can with my videos in order to get people to watch. But it's nice to stay out of the fray with all the reactionary stuff going on. And it's also nice to be more reflective spiritually at this time. And with all the time that I have not been spending on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, I've been reading. So it's been great, and it's nice to kind of recognize where your mind, where in your life, on your in your day to day, your mind kind of goes to, oh, I want to share this on social media. Well, it forces me to ask why. Like, what is it about me? Am I trying to create some kind of persona for the public to feed into? Does it really mean anything? So it's been nice. Anyways, I know you're not here for that, but I can't help but to talk about the personal stuff sometimes. I know you want to get my take on politics, and a lot has happened, and it's good that I get to take this time. I'm going to go over almost all of it. I'm probably going to miss a few things here or there, but basically what went down in the last week, this was a big week. It was Super Tuesday. This past Tuesday, I'm recording this on a Saturday night. Yes, that's what I do on Saturday nights. My life is that boring. But yeah, the past week was kind of crazy. I think the last time I spoke, I I think it was Sunday maybe, and I said that the establishment was stupid at that time. In my last video, I'm pretty sure I uttered those words. And I am eating my words as we speak, because what the establishment did was they took advantage of the perfect moment in order to capitalize and to stuff Bernie Sanders' campaign, or to stunt its growth from what was projected to actually happen. The projections were that he was going to end up with, if not a plurality, a majority of the delegates. And at the right moment, they capitalized on the big South Carolina win for Joe Biden. And I'm assuming they called up Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg and asked them to drop out in order to coalesce the conservative vote within the Democratic Party behind Joe Biden's candidacy. They also reached out to Beto O'Rourke, who was once a candidate for presidency, who I think he represented El Paso, that congressional district in Texas, and they asked him to also endorse Joe Biden ahead of the Texas primary. And the strategy worked. What we saw was that Joe Biden won a lot of the delegates that were to be allocated on Super Tuesday. Now, the disappointments on the Bernie Sanders campaign was that in Massachusetts, he did not come out on top. In Vermont, he didn't sweep all the delegates. I think Joe Biden even got some delegates as a result. Bernie Sanders did not win Minnesota the way that he was kind of expecting to. He was, I don't think Bernie Sanders was expecting to win Texas, but he was expecting to have a strong showing, and he did have a strong showing, so he did get that. But it kind of just stunted the amount of delegates that he was going to get. I think he probably came short a little bit of what he was expecting, but the problem was that all of those delegates go to Joe Biden. Now Joe Biden's ahead in the delegate count. Joe Biden is a presumptive frontrunner in this whole thing. And it's just insane. Look, I wrote down a few notes about what I want to actually talk about, but I think that the important thing to recognize in what occurred this past week is the storyline of the establishment versus Bernie Sanders. What does this actually mean? The establishment, who knows who it was, whether it was Obama or Rahm Emanuel or Nancy Pelosi or whatever Democratic Party operatives, decided that Bernie Sanders is so repulsive of a candidate for the Democratic Party that they must do everything they can to get him out. And so they colluded with one another because they internally see him as such a threat that they needed to somehow coalesce a vote against him and take down his campaign. Let's think about this for a second. Bernie Sanders is running, has run, has been promoting for his entire career a message of a country where every person is entitled to health care no matter what their income is. Everyone is entitled to a proper education that doesn't depend on the zip code you live in. That people should be able to go to college without racking up insane amounts of debt, that public colleges should be tuition free, that we should have a very revolutionary, or maybe an incremental, but just a straightforward approach to dealing with the climate crisis that we're in. This is what he's been saying for all these years. All right, let's forget this, any other narrative that's going on, because all of that is bullshit. What the Democratic Party is saying, that the things that Bernie Sanders is actually fighting for is so repulsive. They don't want free health care for everyone. And it's not free. We all pay for it. But they don't want people to have that access to healthcare. They don't want people to have access to free education for a college diploma, for a bachelor's degree. They are fighting against a raised minimum wage. So much so, a living wage. They're fighting against it so much so that they're willing to freaking gut the Bernie Sanders campaign, to do anything to take him out. I think there was an interview on The View with Rahm Emanuel just days before Super Tuesday, in which he said, strategy 1, take him out. Strategy 2, take him out. Strategy 3, take him out. This means that the Democratic Party, the DNC, the Nancy Pelosi's, the Joe Bidens, the Barack Obamas of this world, the Rahm Emanuels, don't want the impoverished people in the United States, the working class people in the United States, to have anything that they've been fighting for. What's been going on in this country, the wealth divide that's been happening since the Reagan years, and the neoliberal economic policies that have been in place from every single president, that has forced a boot on the necks of average Americans day to day. The Democratic Party has proven that they don't want any of the alleviation of the pain of the American people. That's exactly what that move meant. I'm sorry I'm screaming about this, but this shit makes me mad. That there's a party that lies like they do, that is so full of shit, that they're willing to throw the person who is the most popular senator in the country, they're willing to throw him under the bus so that the things that he represents and the things that the people actually want do not go through. That's what the Democratic Party stands for. That's what Nancy Pelosi stands for. What Barack Obama stands for. What Joe Biden and Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg and Beto O'Rourke. That's what they all stand for. Forget Mike Bloomberg. We all know he's a Republican. But the people that say that they have your back, they don't. And we need to recognize that they don't. And we need to stop pretending like they're actually on our side. Because they're absolutely not. And what they did on Super Tuesday to make sure that Bernie Sanders does not get the nomination, the things that he's fighting for, do not get on the Democratic ticket, do not go to the White House. That corporate money doesn't go to the White House. They did everything they could to make sure that it doesn't go to the White House, that doesn't get the representation that the people of this country actually want it to have. So that's what this whole fight actually means. And you know what? It's war now. Within the Democratic Party, the establishment has effectively said, fuck you to the people. And so now progressives, the faction within the Democratic Party, and I hate even saying within the Democratic Party because I don't feel like it's a party that represents me. But we want to take over it. We want actual policies that reflect and support working people of this country to be represented for once. And so we're trying our best to get these policies within the party because it's much easier to have some kind of insurgent movement to take over the Democratic Party than to run on a third party ticket. Historically, it's almost impossible to create a third party and then make it one of the new major parties of this country. And so that's why we caucus with the Democrats. We vote in the Democratic primaries because we want to get the change done from within. We see that it's the most effective route for change. But make no mistake, the establishment does not want any of these policies to be in place for whoever is the next president. In fact, they are more willing to have Donald Trump be the president. Why? So they could continue their fundraising efforts. So that they could continue saying that they're the good guys. They're the ones on our team. Because look at how bad Donald Trump is. That's what it all means. Anyways, I'm sorry, I got a little fired up, but I am very angry about this. Let me see if I could cool down enough to make some sense. I hope I made sense through that. Anyways, the thing was that, look, we can't just blame the establishment on what occurred. Obviously, they have their interests, and obviously they see Bernie Sanders as a threat to their interests. Look, if it was something, if Bernie Sanders was not running, and let's just imagine instead of him, it was some other politician, maybe it was Beto O'Rourke or Kamala Harris, and they had all those like 8, 9, 10 Democrats running, and Beto O'Rourke was having the same numbers as Bernie Sanders, none of them would have interfered. They wouldn't have been like, all right, now time to coalesce around Joe Biden to take out Beto O'Rourke. They would not have done that. All right, they would have been so happy. They would have been like, it looks like Beto O'Rourke is going to be the nominee. They would start throwing money at Beto O'Rourke. They would start supporting him. They'd give him the media attention that they'd want the nominee to have. The fact that Bernie is so beloved, not just within the Democratic Party, but within the Republican Party. Yes, Republicans like Bernie Sanders. He doesn't lie to them. They would rather take someone that they don't agree with, but who is honest, like Bernie Sanders, than someone like Joe Biden. You're not going to fucking meet people in the middle with a moderate candidate. That shit doesn't happen. There's no such thing as a moderate. A moderate is just someone that is unsure about what the stances of the politicians are. People generally have ideas of what they want in their country. They're not like, oh yeah, you know, I like this of the Republican Party and I like this of the Democratic Party, so I'm in the middle. That's not how it fucking works. Republicans would definitely vote for Bernie Sanders because of how honest the guy is. And in terms of people who haven't made up their minds, independents, of course they'll go with Bernie Sanders. You have the best shot at beating Donald Trump with Bernie Sanders. But anyways, Bernie's strategy, it seemed so far, had been to kind of win the Democratic nomination in the same exact way that Donald Trump won the nomination. Meaning, Bernie stood head and shoulders above the rest of the crowd. Bernie had his own take on things. The populist left loved it. American workers were really drawn to his message, and the strategy was like a slow burn, as I would call it. You know, he won all 3 of the first primaries, a popular vote at least. I know Iowa was some shit show, but I think people were just starting to learn at that point. And even with a Joe Biden win in South Carolina, you would have started seeing, you know, a little bit more of a coalescing of the vote around Bernie, same way that Donald Trump started to win the nomination in 2016. And I think that eventually the cream would have just rise to the top, which was Bernie Sanders. Instead, look, I said that the establishment was stupid. They're not. They looked at what happened in 2016 with the Trump nomination, and they said this shit is not going to happen on the Democratic side. So rather than allow all the Democrats to kind of eat each other's votes, all the moderates, which I see as conservatives, to instead of them taking away votes from each other, they said, all right, you drop out, you drop out, you drop out. They probably cut deals with them. They said, look, if you drop out now and endorse Joe Biden, you get a spot in the cabinet or something, some kind of post. If Joe Biden wins the presidency, which I don't think he would beat Donald Trump, but if he does, you're going to see all 3 of them, Beto, Buttigieg, Klobuchar, you'll see them in some sort of Biden cabinet. But yeah, his strategy was to have a slow burn, and yeah, that was interrupted basically. So here's the thing: Joe Biden is ahead in delegates, but he's such a bad candidate. If we compare what Hillary Clinton did in 2016 to what Joe Biden has done in 2020, Hillary Clinton won California. Hillary Clinton won Texas by, I think, much larger margin than Joe Biden did. So, and even so, in the other states, I don't think that the numbers were as wide between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders as they were wide between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders in 2016. So, like, Joe Biden is not even a Hillary Clinton. And look, I'm no fan of Hillary Clinton, but that woman, in terms of a representative of the establishment, she's much better politically. She's way tougher than Joe Biden. Even with all the problems that she had with her emails and how corrupt she was, and all the stuff that she had with the influence over the DNC and everything, she's still politically just so much sharper. She's a much better fighter than Joe Biden. She doesn't take shit. She's an attack dog. And so just seeing now that Joe Biden, yeah, he now has a delegate lead over Bernie Sanders, and there's a very good chance he's going to win the nomination with a delegate lead. He's just not as good as Hillary Clinton was. And what does that spell for November? That we'll probably see Donald Trump beat Joe Biden, I would say even with a popular vote. So forget just an electoral college vote, which he would definitely get. I think he might win with a popular vote. All right. So there's been so much media talk about what happened in the South and why Joe Biden does so much better in the South. And there's a whole narrative of, that there are more conservative black voters in the South. I actually don't buy that. When we look at the history of the South in modern American history, I'm talking like the last 100 years, maybe. The civil rights movement that came out of the South. Dr. King, who was born in Georgia, and many milestones of his life occurred in in states in the South. There is a large tradition for black voters to support progressive causes, to support things like Medicare for all, free public education, higher wages, those kinds of things. But what we have to realize, in trying to explain why these voters don't necessarily go for the more progressive candidate, what we have to realize is that just because they want these things with the rest of the progressive movement doesn't mean that they're going to vote for the candidate who is going to deliver that, or who says they're going to deliver it. What does Medicare for all actually mean? What does free public education actually mean? What does higher wages actually mean? What does an erasing of student loan debt actually mean? What that actually means when we look at it, the numbers and the demographics of it, is that we would be voting on a transfer of wealth from white America to black America. If we look at the health indicators, the people that would benefit the most from programs like Medicare for all are African Americans and black people in this country. Who would benefit most from erasing student debt? I'm not saying like the majority of people, like the numbers of people that would, the most number of people that would benefit the most. I'm talking about in terms of a demographic. If it's white America or black America, if you were to erase student debt, that would proportionately help them more than it would help white America. All these programs that Bernie Sanders is proposing mean a transfer of wealth from white America to black America. Rightfully so. Because black America is the working class of this country. Latinos in this country are the working class of this country. The working class is a multiracial, did I say? Yeah, I think I said multiracial, multi-generational people. And so I don't think that it's that black people are rejecting these policies. I think what they are thinking about is they go to the polls and they're saying, it's not, oh, I'm voting against my own interest or whatever. It's more like, will white America actually vote to do this transfer of wealth? And that's when they get to the polls and they're deciding, no, they're probably not going to support this kind of thing. And so that's the thing. It's not necessarily that we have to go into the South and we have to somehow change the message of Medicare for all for black voters so that they get it more because they're more conservative. No, that's all bullshit. What we have to convince them of is that a white working class is ready for those things as well and that they are willing to vote alongside them. And so that's the trick with the Sanders campaign. And then also the other reason why Joe Biden won the South and why he's probably going to win more southern states is because of this air of trustworthiness, which I don't buy into. I don't see him as trusting. And his association with Obama, that might be tied to that trustworthiness. So, yeah. Anyways, if you're watching this, you're probably a Bernie fan like me. But here's the thing. I'm going to just go into right now what his obstacles are because he still does have a fighting chance in this. What he has to do to overcome those obstacles, and then what my predictions are for this next Tuesday, which is, they call it Super Tuesday Part 2, because there's going to be 6 more contests on Tuesday, and so we'll go over those. But anyways, his number one obstacle really is the media. And it's not that they are blasting him now. It's more like you got to understand what they've done over the last 3 years since Donald Trump won. MSNBC has gone on every night. Rachel Maddow has gone on every single night to talk about the Trump presidency and how he came into power. And she has stoked fears of Russian interference in the election. And she's basically done a freaking PhD thesis on Russian interference in the 2016 election and basically convinced Americans that the reason Hillary Clinton lost is because of Russia, because of Comey, because of sexism, because of blah, 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 blah. They refuse to acknowledge that there's actual pain in this country that's stifling the working class, and that the Democratic Party did not have a candidate that remotely resembled anything that represented the working class of this country. And so the fact that MSNBC and CNN have convinced the Democratic base for the last 3 years that Trump is the problem, not the Democratic Party, not the party that has not raised the minimum wage in years, or a party that fails to get the country out of war, to get our servicemen and women out of conflicts in the Middle East. It's just Donald Trump and his indecency and all that bullshit. And you know what? That's the fake news. Because it's the narrative that the media is putting out there that says that if we just go back to everything being normal, we're going to be fine again. And you know what? Going back to an Obama presidency where Joe Biden was also in the executive branch, that's what led us to Donald Trump. And so their failure to reflect and to tell the truth really has done a disservice to Bernie Sanders' campaign, because now you have a lot of the Democratic base that is just convinced, even if they're not affected by certain issues. We're talking about, Democratic suburbia, basically. People that are living well, not necessarily paycheck to paycheck, they might be saving. People that watch MSNBC, that read the New York Times, they are convinced that it's just Donald Trump and his indecency, and he was able to convince bad people, racist people, to go out and vote for him. And that's how he won. And so we just need to go out and higher numbers to get everything back on track to where it was. And that's just not the case. So that's the main thing of how the media has been an obstacle to Bernie Sanders. But then in addition to that, look, the media is run by this professional managerial class, and they hate Bernie Sanders. Like, look, if Bernie Sanders gets to the White House, he hasn't taken any corporate money. He's not going to be dishing out jobs to all these freaking pundits on TV. He doesn't give a shit about them. Bernie Sanders is not going to call them on their birthday. So the media just doesn't like him. And they're not that professional managerial class, they're not affected by issues of healthcare as much as the rest of the country is. People like me, I mean, I'm not affected by the healthcare system that much, but I have to go onto the exchange and buy my health insurance. And God forbid I have some major issue, then I have to pay $10,000. No, not that much this year, but almost $10,000 of a deductible out of pocket in order to qualify. And then I still have to pay half the cost. That's my copay. My copay is still 1/2 thereafter. Like, get out of here. They don't have to worry about that kind of shit, but other people do. So it's not top of mind. They're not reporting on healthcare. They're not reporting on the Flint crisis in Michigan. They don't care about that shit. So their obsession with their own interests just feeds into the whole entire thing anyways, and why the media is an obstacle for Bernie Sanders. His other obstacle is truly his lack of friends in the media and in Washington, D.C. Look, on one hand, he doesn't have friends in D.C. Because he doesn't play politics like the rest of these other politicians do. He takes small dollar donations. He's not in bed with corporations, not in bed with the DNC. So it's not like he's playing. He's literally in DC as a senator trying to get shit done for the American people. And so the friends that he makes are more just genuine friendships, but they're not like this kind of working relationship where, like, hey, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. Let's make it. He hasn't been making deals like that over the years. So that's what I mean when I say that he lacks friends. He's not even getting Elizabeth Warren to help him out now that she dropped out of the race. She doesn't give a fuck. She cares about herself. She plays politics like all those other politicians do. It would be great to have her endorsement because she does, on a superficial level, I got to give her credit. There are things that she has fought for that have been very progressive. So I take that back. But she does represent way more than what she actually, like, the representation, the the facade of progressivism for her is much larger than the way that she plays her politics, because the way that she cuts deals with the establishment, that's not so progressive, if you will. But he's not even that good of friends with her, because he doesn't play politics with her to even get her endorsement. But then, yeah, here's the other thing. So on one hand, he lacks friends that will scratch his back if he needs in Washington. But then also, like, the way that he does politics is that he literally, it seems to me, he went to Washington when he became a congressman for Vermont, and he went there to, and his motto was just like, be nice to everyone, be friendly with everyone. You know, he's always talking about my friend Joe, my friend this. He's not a bad person. He doesn't have anything malignant to say about anyone, and this does not work in his favor. This works in no one's favor when you're in Washington, D.C. Look, for his own conscience, if he wants to act like that, that's fine, so he could go to bed at night and be the person that he wants to be. I get it. There's a spiritual component to this, to all of this. And so he's got to do what he's got to do in order to sleep at night and feel good about the campaign that he's running. But his unwillingness to play dirty is a disadvantage for him. All right, what does he have to do in order to overcome these obstacles? Well, number one, number two, number three, number four, number everything is he's got to fight like hell. And I think that it's about time he starts calling out specific instances of corruption, starts saying that the DNC is corrupt. Talk about why they don't want him to be president. Start saying, you don't have to name names if you don't feel comfortable, because you won't be able to sleep at night over it. But if you at least start saying there are people high up in the Democratic Party, people that are beloved by the American people, politicians who are beloved by the American people, who play corrupt politics. You don't have to say that it's Nancy Pelosi. You don't have to say that it's Joe Biden. You don't have to say that it's Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, or whoever else it might be. You can just say that almost everyone in politics is corrupt, and they take money from corporations, and the reason why they won't work fast on climate change is because it doesn't benefit the fossil fuel industry. You could say that. All right. I think if he does that, he starts looking a little bit more like the fighter that he was in 2016. Because look, here's the thing now that it's 2020 and he was a front runner, he started acting presidential after those three big wins. He pulled back on the fighter aspect of his campaign. Now that he's behind, he really has to change things up and be the fighter that everyone has known him to be, to remind them why in Michigan they voted for him in the first place. All right. Number two, I think he's got to get two people out in the media, very importantly, because they are great messengers for him. I think he's got to get Jane Sanders out there. One, because I think that people crave a little bit of the personality cult of Bernie Sanders, and he doesn't give enough, ever. He's constantly just trying to be like, he tries to keep his personal life away. But then, too, I think Jane probably reads very well with white suburban women. And I think that from what I've been hearing in the media, that Bernie failed with the suburban vote and the white suburban vote. And to get Jane out there, I think she's fantastic. She's a great messenger. She's constantly happy. No one's going to talk shit to her. She's not going to cause too much controversy, but she's so likable. She's fantastic. And then the other one, I think he's got to get out on screen, and he has. I saw her early, I think it was today actually, in the media, Nina Turner. Now, people are generally going to be like, all right, we need to get Nina Turner out so she could get the black vote. I don't think that's why. Look, I think that she will be able to talk that talk. Every time that she's on the microphone, you could tell that she gets her oration skills from church. And so, yes, she could talk that language to black voters, but that's not particularly why. I actually think, much like Jane Sanders, I think Nina Turner actually has a lot of appeal with suburban white voters as well. She's just a down-to-earth girl who says it like she just says exactly what's on her mind, and I think that she's super likable. And not only that, she's an attack dog. So she will say the things that Bernie won't say, and she'll come out vicious. Like it was a segment, maybe it was last night, but I saw it this morning. But Chris Cuomo was interviewing her and Hillary Rosen. Hillary Rosen's this like DNC operative, establishment creature. And Nina Turner, excuse me, Nina Turner chewed her up. Nina looked great. She was aggressive. See, that's the thing. Nina could get aggressive, and she's still super likable. So I think out of all the chairs of Bernie's campaign, she's probably the most effective voice. She's super captivating. Like, you just get drawn in when she speaks. And so for her to do that on a national scale, I think would help out a lot. And like I said, again, with, I think, the white suburban vote. Even though she's a black female, I actually think she translates well with the white suburban vote. Much in the way that Barack Obama did when Barack Obama was running for president. I think Bernie Sanders also, and he doesn't look like he's not doing this, but he's got to double down on all the controversial things he's said. Don't apologize about the Castro stuff. Don't apologize about Venezuela, Iran, or even the Bernie bros. You know what? I think you have to come out defending Bernie bros. And because it's all bullshit. It's a bullshit narrative. I'm not even going to go into it, but the shit that establishment heads say about Bernie bros, about people in the progressive movement is such bullshit. We don't even need to go there. But there's not this, don't give it this like false like leveling where, oh, but Bernie bros are so much worse. No, we're not. Not at all. In fact, I think that Bernie bros are much nicer. I think that the Bernie, like the people on Twitter that support Bernie's campaign, I think they're way more nuanced in what they attack. They go after policy. So let's not even go there. But I think that Bernie Sanders has to defend his team much in the same way that he defended Nina Turner, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib as well. And I think that also Rashida would be a great spokesperson out there for Bernie, but she's a congresswoman. I don't know how much she could do as well. I've seen AOC on TV as well. AOC seems to play a little nicer than Nina Turner does, or even Rashida. Look, I think that the people out there that the Sanders team puts out have to be aggressive and likable, and so that's what I think. And then also, last thing that Bernie needs to do, I think he has to tactfully, because Bernie always says that Joe Biden is his friend, and Bernie, the way that Bernie plays politics is he is friendly with his co-senators and everything, and Joe Biden was a senator with him for some time, but he's got to go after Biden and his corruption, and yes, even Burisma. Why? Because there is something there, and no, it's not as bad as Donald Trump and Ivanka and Eric and Don Jr. and the whole lot of those motherfuckers. But it's time that Bernie Sanders starts talking about the corruption on the Democratic Party specifically. And I think he could do it without burning any bridges. He could say, look, I don't have any family members on the board of any energy companies at all. And he could link it to why, how that can influence a president's foreign relations, how that can influence a president's stance on climate change, on anything. So he has to look. I would love to see him like just no holds barred, but I know Bernie. I know he won't do that. So tactfully go after Biden and his corruption, and that's what I think he's got to do. Even still, I don't know if it'll be enough. The establishment really has done a number on the Sanders campaign. Anyways, my predictions. I'll make it quick. There are 6 states that are going to be voting: Washington, Idaho, North Dakota, Michigan, Mississippi, and Missouri. I think Bernie takes 3. I think Biden takes 3. But I think Biden takes the ones that are more delegate rich. So I think that Bernie's going to win Washington, Idaho, and North Dakota. It seems that Biden's slightly ahead in Washington, but I think Bernie's going to pull it off. I think that he'll win that. But I think that Biden, I hate to say this because I don't want him to, and Bernie's story in Michigan 4 years ago was so good. But I think Biden's going to take Michigan. I think he's going to take Mississippi, and I think he's going to take Missouri. But we'll see. Who knows what could happen? Maybe Elizabeth Warren endorses tomorrow. And look, if she doesn't endorse tomorrow, there's still time for her to for that, surprise endorsement that might help out in future contests. Tuesday is big because Michigan is there and it's going to say a lot going forward. And then there's going to be a debate on March 15th before the next set of primaries. It would be nice if she endorsed tomorrow or Monday or soon enough before the votes, so that undecided people could maybe think twice and be like, all right, Bernie's not so bad. I like Warren, so I'll go with Bernie. But she could still endorse next week, I still think, and still have a positive impact on the Bernie campaign. But look, we don't want we don't want to wait on Bernie's campaign. So, anyways, this was a long one. I think what I'm going to try to do, I might try to split these up into little segments so that people could watch short segments of me talking. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Catch me on Instagram, Twitter. But I'm not on it. But if you want to just find me and add me, I'm not going to be posting or doing anything or sharing or interacting or following back. But go ahead. It's at Johnny Jabbour, JohnnyJabbour. And yeah, this was another episode of Johnny's Jabs. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will catch you later.